Nats Chat is brought to you by Walters. Check out the self-pour beer wall at Walters. Walters is located across the street from Nationals Park. Walters is the best sports bar in Navy Yard.
Walters is your spot for all of the NBA playoffs.
Now the 1-1. Fastball hit on the ground to short. It beats up Strange Gordon out into left field. One run will score. Chisholm trying to score. Thomas's throw is up the third base line. Off for Weese's glove. He doesn't see it. And now the runners will advance. Throw to second. And that ball's into center field. Aguilar's going to score. Robles, a diving play, saves another run as Soler will go to third. 3-run score. It was nearly a Little League grand slam, if not for a great play by Robles. 7-1 Miami, a 2-run single. Then Arano fired the ball into center field, and Robles made a diving play to keep that ball from going to the fence. And so Soler only gets to third on the play. But a disastrous outcome nonetheless. A 4-1 game turns into 7-1.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Tuesday, May 17th, 2022, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. You know, someday, hopefully soon, the Nats will be good again, and all kinds of good things will be happening. You know, Cade Cavalli will be contending for a Cy Young Award, and Josiah Gray will be among the best number 2 starters in the majors, and Brady House and Juan Soto will form one of the best 1-2 punches in the majors, and all will be happy again in Navy Yard. We look so forward to those good days coming oh so soon. And when those good days finally arrive, we probably will look back upon an 8-2 loss at the Miami Marlins in front of dozens of people on Monday night, May 16th, 2022. And we'll have a good laugh. And we'll say, hey, remember those times? Those were bad times. But these times now, these times are much better times. The unfortunate thing is we right now, as we have this conversation, are still in the midst of those bad times. And what we had on Monday night was the worst of the bad times so far this season. You never say rock bottom because you're not sure about rock bottom until you're out of wherever the rock bottom is taking place. But for now, I don't know about you, Mark. To me, this was the worst of the Nats so far this season. An 8-2 loss at the Marlins on Monday night, a game in which the offense was bad, the pitching was bad, the defense was bad. You had that notoriously stale atmosphere in Miami. Not a good night, and just not a lot to feel good about with this Nats team right now.
Well, you know, I do remember a time many, many years ago, back during the original low point for this team, and somebody asked Manny Acta, then the manager, if a particular loss that night felt like it was rock bottom. And Manny laughed and he said, it can always get worse. So I shudder to think what else might still be ahead of us before this is all said and done. But yeah, this one was pretty dreadful. And the thing to me is there was an opportunity there in the first 2 innings for them to actually take control of the game and do something against Sandy Alcantara and maybe, just maybe, actually put together a pretty good ball game. And they squandered it. And after that, once they were down, it was like there was nothing happening. And I think one of the maybe most discouraging things about this team so far this year, and this is different and not necessarily what I was expecting to happen this year. When they're down early, or even sometimes when they're up early, it's like the game story's already been written. There's not a lot of back and forth. There's not a lot of late inning drama. A lot of these games, I would venture to say a majority of games, have been decided by like the 3rd inning. And that's not good. It's not good for, interest in a team, but it's also not a good sign of a team that they either have it or they don't have it on a given night. And they clearly didn't have it on this night.
No, they did not. The Nats now this season are 12-25. They are 6-18 since a 6-7 start to the season. You know, when people talk about the dark days of the Nationals in D.C., they talk about the back-to-back 100-loss seasons, 2008, 2009. The loss totals for those seasons were 102 in 08, 103 in 2009. Understand, the Nats right now are on pace to lose 110 games this season, okay? Now, do I think they're going to end up losing 110 games? Probably not. But here's the thing. We can't dismiss that as a possibility. You know, we're 37 games now into this Nats season. We're nearly a quarter of the way into the season. The season's happening, okay? We're not like in mid-April anymore, okay? We're now well into the month of May. It's going to be Memorial Day before any of us know it. And, I do wonder this. Could it be that things are worse than Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez thought? Could it be that things are worse than any of us thought? That, when initially the Nats went into this rebuild, we all were kind of hopeful and also maybe in denial and saying things like, well, maybe the rebuild won't take so long. And maybe it won't still, right? But what if it does? What if this team is in a worse spot than we ever anticipated? Because the truth is, the Nats so far this season, and things can change, but so far this season have been among the worst teams in baseball. And seeing that performance on Monday night, it just slapped you in the face. This is a really bad team.
So at the moment, I'm looking up the standings. Only the Reds, who are a complete train wreck. I mean, so bad that they threw a no-hitter on Sunday and still managed to lose the game. So at least we haven't had that yet happen around here. They're the only team with a worst winning percentage at the moment at .257, 9-26, where the Nats are at .324. The only other teams in the conversation under 400, you have the Orioles and Red Sox are under 400. You have the Royals and Tigers under 400. Oakland's just over it at 405. So, yeah, I mean, it's really bad. And, we've been talking about it's not so much about the record, but about the who's doing what and what signs are there for optimism, and particularly among the young guys. There are glimpses of things here and there. But I think what's disappointing is there's not consistency among that. So, like, for example, Josiah Gray on any given night can look like, hey, this guy seems like he's going to be a solid big league starter. And then other nights can look really bad. Same thing for Yohan Adon. Some of the young guys, Keibert Ruiz, on some nights say, boy, he looks like a good quality, maybe even all-star catcher someday, but doesn't look like that every night. And I think that's maybe the frustrating part of this, is that it's not even like we can point at one player and say, okay, boy, this guy's having a great year. Or here's the thing to get excited about. Yeah, the team is losing, but every single night we get to watch this guy play. Now, that should be Juan Soto, but he's not playing like Juan Soto right now. That's not helping. Josh Bell's been excellent, but as we know, he's in the final year of his contract. We don't know if he's a part of the long-term future or not. Yadiel Hernandez is 34 years old. We don't know what his future is. So I think that, to me, is the discouraging thing, that even on a really bad team, you can look at some individuals and say, okay, this is the coming out party for so-and-so. This is going to be, you can tell this guy is a part of the thing when they're going to win down the road. And at least so far, 37 games in, there hasn't been a lot of that.
No, and it feels sometimes, and look, it's a day-to-day sport, right? So we could be singing an entirely different tune on the next installment of the podcast, but it's starting to feel like the cupboard may be more bare than we realized. It's starting to feel like, instead of, well, they just have to retool and they can get back to winning again. No, it feels like they need a lot of work. The farm system is still ranked as being among the poorest in the sport. And when you see what we're seeing so far this year, so few wins, so many losses, we are seeing a lot of non-competitive losses, the likes of which we saw on Monday night. It's tough. And this game on Monday night really was a complete loss. The hitting was really bad. The pitching was really bad. And the defense may have been worse. Like, there's just not a lot to grab onto here with this team right now, with the offense on Monday night. So Nelson Cruz was scratched from the lineup due to illness. We'll see what ends up coming of that. But, even without Cruz, I mean, we all know he has not been very good this season. The Nats on Monday night, 2 runs, totaled 5 hits, all of which were singles, worked just 1 walk. Now, the Marlins starting pitcher, Sandy Alcantara, he is good. He's having a good season. He was really good on Monday night, 1 run in 8 innings. But there just was like nothing happening with this team. And, the Nats did their thing where they scored in the first inning. They've done that a lot this year. And then, like you talked about earlier, they just go silent for pretty much the rest of the game. The Nats scored their 2 runs on Monday night in the first and 9th innings. And in between, there was just so little. Juan Soto, 0 for 4, left 3 men on base. Maikel Franco, 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts, left 5 men on base. D. Strange Gordon, 0 for 4. Josh Bell went 1 for 4 with a single, okay. But, there just was not a lot happening with this team offensively. And when you combine that with the other things that went wrong, it's hard to win. We thought the offense would be good this season, and it still might end up being that. But boy, it has not been good so far this season.
Well, that's the hit and miss part, literally. We talked about when they win, they're scoring 7+ runs. When they lose, they're scoring 2 or 1. And there's no in between. They just haven't had these games where they scored, 4 or 5, anything like that. To me, what's crazy about this is, and I almost didn't believe it when I saw the final box score, but I looked back on this and it's true. They were 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position in this game. Can you believe they had 9 at-bats with runners in scoring position? This game didn't feel like they had anything. But you know why? Because the first 2 innings, they had Alcantara on the ropes. You get a run in the first. You have the bases loaded with 1 out, and then Franco hits a chopper to third. They get the out at the plate. Lane Thomas strikes out looking, so that's the end of that one. The second inning, you have 2 on with 1 out. And you've got your ostensibly your 2 best hitters up, and Juan Soto grounds out, and Josh Bell grounds out, and then that starts the run of 20 consecutive batters retired by Alcantara to end his night. He was at 43 pitches after 2 innings. He only needed 57 over his next 6 innings, that fewer than 10 pitches per inning. They were quick at bats. They were non-competitive at bats. It was a ton of ground balls. It's not even like there were a lot of, that ball was well struck and just a nice play. There were a few of those, but not that much of that. And yes, Alcantara is an excellent pitcher. He's probably the ace of that young staff, which is a better than advertised young pitching staff. But still, to have success early and then nothing after that, to me is very discouraging. And I'm looking at Juan Soto right now, and I'm thinking, I don't know who he is right now. This is not the guy that we have seen. And I know he's had a few slumps in his career, and it usually early in the year. And by the end of the season, we're looking back saying, remember when he was struggling? But boy, both in terms of the results and the body language, I see a guy who is not feeling right up there and is frustrated and does not have the result to show for it. There were some pretty non-competitive at-bats from him in this game.
Yeah, we're not used to that with him. And like you just said, the obvious signs of frustration, these manifestations of frustration, usually he's, calm and cool and, he's doing the Soto shuffle and he's grabbing himself all over the place. And he's like, he's feeling it. He's got that Soto swagger going on. We're not seeing that at all so far here. And, I don't know if the losing is getting to him or if just his own personal struggles are getting to him. And I say struggles in quotation marks. I mean, he's got an 865 OPS on the year, but the OPS has come down considerably in recent weeks. Look, man, this is how it is right now with this team. So Soto's got to either self-motivate or get out of this rut that he's in. Like, this is how it is, okay? I mean, call up Mike Trout and ask him what it's like to be a great player on a bad team. But, this is where you are, at least for the next few years, I mean, you got to think this isn't doing the Nats any favors and trying to lock him up long-term, but that's another conversation. Things aren't changing for this team this season. This is how it is. So he's got to figure something out here. But yeah, he's usually so jovial. He doesn't appear to be that way. He doesn't seem happy right now, at least when we watch him play.
Yeah, I agree. And, he has his moments. I see him in the clubhouse and he can be smiling and having a good time, but it's not quite what we've seen from him in the past. And look, he's human. We can understand why he would be very frustrated, both by his performance and the state of the team at the moment. So, yeah, I get why that would be the case. But that said, you're a professional and this is the way it's going to be. And he kind of already went through this. Remember, last year, right after the trade deadline, he slumped a little bit. He was in a kind of a bad mood. He was down for a few weeks. And then he sort of perked back up. He kind of figured it out and he wound up having this great second half of the year, even when the team was not good. And it seemed like he had come to grips with what was going on with the organization. Well, he kind of needs to go through that again, potentially here, unless this is truly just about his own individual performance. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's just out of sync at the plate right now. He's chasing a lot of pitches. He's those outside balls that he always would drive to left field. He's rolling over on them and hitting ground balls back to the right side of the infield. And that's just not who he is. He isn't even taking as many walks as we see. He's just jumpy. And maybe that's Nelson Cruz's struggles. Maybe it's hitting second. Maybe it's the team struggles. I don't know exactly what it is, but he is clearly not himself right now. I think everybody hopes that a month from now we're laughing at this and saying, hey, boy, Juan Soto's on his way to being an all-star again and having an MVP caliber season. And hey, remember those couple of weeks when he looked like he was in a slump. But right now in this moment, you can tell he does not look right. Certainly not the guy that we've been watching for the last 4 years.
Yeah, the guy who's actually drawing walks right now, believe it or not, is Cesar Hernandez. He all of a sudden, game in and game out, is drawing walks, which is nice to see. Hey guys, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation. The Window Nation graduation sale continues. If your old windows are failing or just not making the grade, here's a homework assignment. Call Window Nation and get to the head of the class with 0% financing for 5 full years. Yes, 5 years, 60 months. And get 2 free windows for every 2 windows that you buy. Window Nation windows are the best. Window Nation has installed over 1 million windows in over 150,000 homes, with 96% of those homes needing no follow-up service. You get 2 free windows for every 2 windows that you buy, and you make no down payment and pay no interest for 24 months. Increase the value of your home with Curb Appeal. Save money on your energy bills by replacing your old inefficient windows with new energy efficient Window Nation windows. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. That's 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. And make sure that you tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you. That's 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. And make sure that you tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you.
Now the pitch, swinging a chopper, third base line, off the mound. Bass, off balance throw is not in time. Thomas beats the play. Ball had some spin, and Bass had to really reach for it and was kind of falling back as he made the throw to first. And Thomas beat it on the play. Yadiel Hernandez scores.
I think what perfectly captures the Nats offense on Monday night is that they scored their second run on an infield single. Lane Thomas, in a 1-run Nats ninth, had a 1-out RBI infield single on a ball that was fielded by the pitcher. You almost never see that. You had that on Monday night. Now, speaking of Lane Thomas, he was involved in about as hideous of a defensive sequence for a baseball team as you'll ever see. The Nats, on one play, committed 2 errors on Monday night, and it wasn't just that. There were multiple other defensive miscues during this sequence. We've talked recently about the Nats' sloppy defense. The sloppiness continued on Monday night. So the Marlins on Monday night had a 4-run 7th. During that 4-run 7th, Lane Thomas committed a throwing error on a play on which the Nats committed 2 errors. No outs, bases loaded, Nats down 4-1. Victor Arano is pitching. He gives up a single to Jorge Soler to left field. Thomas makes an errant throw to Keibert Ruiz at home plate. Ruiz pulls a Wilson Ramos, has trouble catching the baseball, which ends up rolling toward first base. Arano then picks up the ball behind the first base line, and in trying to throw the ball to second base, throws the ball into center field. Victor Robles then goes sprinting after the baseball. He ends up actually diving stomach first to get the ball before it rolls deep into the right center field gap. And then Robles has trouble getting the ball out of his glove and, in fact, drops the ball onto the outfield grass.
3-run score. It was nearly a Little League grand slam.
The amount of sloppiness by the Nats on this play, Mark, was mind-boggling. The 2 errors, the struggles of Keibert Ruiz, and then Robles being like bad news bears out there in the outfield. This, in a microcosm, is the state of the Nats defense right now. This was amateur hour, what happened there.
So I know, Al, your kids are too young, but you're going to get here someday in the near future. I watch this every Saturday morning. My 10-year-old and his team and the teams they play, this is not uncommon for this kind of stuff to happen. And it leaves everybody, all the adults, it leaves them like throwing your hands up and screaming and yelling and do this, do that. No, don't do that. No, no, no. Oh, and you just end up putting your hands in your head at the end of all of it as the bases are cleared. You expect that from 10-year-olds. You do not expect that from 25 and 30-year-olds playing Major League Baseball. There was so much that went wrong. It was a hard hit ball, but the ball goes off D. Strange Gordon to get to Lane Thomas to begin with. The throw is offline. Keibert Ruiz not only can't corral it, but then he can't find it. And now Arano picks it up, and at that point, just eat the ball. That's the thing that the Little League coaches have been trying to teach the kids. There comes a point in every play, they yell out, just eat it. Like, just hold on to the ball. Nobody else will advance any further. Let's just take the loss on this play and move on. And they just couldn't do it. They just kept trying to throw people out, and it just kept making it worse. Ugly, ugly, ugly. No excuses for that. And unfortunately, that play is probably going to be one that is remembered for all the wrong reasons around here and could be emblematic of what we think of the 2022 Nationals.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who remember This Week in Baseball, they used to show bloopers like that, and that's exactly the kind of play that would get shown. And, this is the second time in less than a week that we have a play like this. That base running play with Juan Soto and Josh Bell last Thursday was a similar kind of thing where you're like, this is amateur hour. This shouldn't be happening, and yet it is happening. And Oh, by the way, there was another bad defensive moment for the Nats on Monday night. Bottom of the third, Cesar Hernandez had a defensive fail. This on a leadoff single by Jorge Soler. The single by Soler came on a grounder that was hit right to Hernandez. Hernandez was playing on the third base side of second base in a shift. So the shift worked to perfection. Whoever applied the data there did it very well because the ball was hit right to Cesar Hernandez, but he failed to make a backhanded catch of the grounder. He was down on his left knee. Look, it wasn't necessarily the easiest play to make, but that's a play you should make. Again, the ball was hit right to him. Didn't make it. So, is this why the Nats lost a game? No. But every game now, as we talk about these games on this podcast, we have multiple defensive moments, not always errors, but multiple defensive moments where you say, boy, that's a play that should have been made, wasn't made, and on a bad team, this is what happens.
Now, that one was 113 miles an hour off the bat. It was scorched, and I'm assuming that's why it was scored a hit and not an error. And I do always find it interesting now, the information that we all have at our disposal and instantly. Can an official score take into consideration things like exit velocity, and should that matter in ruling error or no error? I think it probably should in that case. But like you said, it's not about whether it was an error or not. It's a play that could have been made and wasn't made. And there have been way too many of those by this team so far this year. And the thing is, if you're the Philadelphia Phillies and you've got a lineup full of sluggers and you're scoring 6, 7, 8 runs a night, you live with the defensive mistakes and you hope that you still can win games like that. This team cannot afford to do that. They simply do not have the offense. And frankly, they don't really have the pitching that can overcome that kind of stuff because they don't have a ton of high strikeout guys on their staff. They have a few. But if you're going to have a staff that includes a decent amount of pitch to contact guys, and Aaron Sanchez falls into that category, you got to play clean defense behind him. And that wasn't the case at all here tonight. And unfortunately, has not been the case too many times here through the season's first 6 weeks.
Yeah, and as we've said, too, a lot of these defensive miscues are being made by veterans. These aren't the Luis Garcias who are making these boo-boos at the major league level. These are the Cesar Hernandezes and the Maikel Francos. And, even Victor Robles has had some rough defensive moments. It's guys who, in theory, are supposed to be better, but for whatever reason, have not been. So you mentioned the Nats pitching. Yeah, there was that, too, on Monday night. Aaron Sanchez was an Nats starting pitcher, and he was brutal. I mean, let's just say it like it was. 4 runs in 3 2/3 innings. He gave up 8 hits, a homer, 4 doubles, and 3 singles. He issued 3 walks, one of which was intentional. He recorded just 2 strikeouts. He threw 74 pitches. He gave up all 4 of the runs that he allowed in the game in the bottom of the second, during which he allowed 6 consecutive Marlins batters to reach base with 1 out. And the frequency with which Aaron Sanchez on Monday night put guys on base who he had down with 2 strikes was just, it drove you nuts if you were into Sanchez hopefully pitching well. But he gave up a 1-out solo homer to Avisail Garcia to center field on a 1-2 pitch to tie the game at 1. Issued a 1-out 7-pitch walk of Brian Anderson, who was down at 1.02. Gave up a 1-out double to Brian De La Cruz down the left field line on a 1-2 pitch. Gave up a 1-out 2-run single to Eric Gonzalez up the middle through a drawn-in Nats infield. That was kind of bad luck for Sanchez because he actually induced pretty weak contact there, but that was a 2-run single. But then he came right back and gave up a 1-out opposite field double to Jacob Stallings off the right field warning track on a 1-2 pitch, then gave up a 1-out RBI single to Jazz Chisholm Jr. All of that happened in succession in that 4-run Marlins second inning with 1 out. He tossed a scoreless bottom of the third, Sanchez did, but he again had problems putting guys away. Gave up a leadoff single to Jorge Soler. He was down at 1.12. Gave up a first pitch double to Garrett Cooper. And then in the bottom of the fourth, Sanchez issued a leadoff 6-pitch walk of Eric Gonzalez. He was down at 1.12. And then Sanchez gave up a 2-out double to Jazz Chisholm Jr., despite him being down in the count at 1.12. All of these guys were in strikeout positions, and Sanchez did not strike any of them out. And Davey Martinez got Sanchez out of the game. Sanchez didn't even complete 4 innings on Monday night. He's now made 5 major league starts for the Nats. He has an ERA of 7.94. We've talked about Steven Strasburg and Joe Ross being on the come. At some point, Cade Cavalli is going to be up here at the major league level. Who is going to be the odd man out in this rotation? It kind of changes your perception of who that man might be. Right now, Aaron Sanchez, ERA of nearly 8 over 5 starts.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if there was somebody else right now ready to take over, it would probably happen. And who knows, maybe they have something up their sleeves that they're working on here. But the only guys on the pitching staff who have pitched for them this year are the 22 people who have pitched for the Nationals already this year. And think about that, 22 pitchers already, 37 games. The only ones with higher ERA are Sam Clay at 11.25. He's at AAA. And D. Strange Gordon at 27.0 from his infamous position player pitching appearance. Not good. But here's what I was just talking about before when we're talking about the defense. If you have a staff that does not get a lot of strikeouts and is pitched to contact, you have to play clean defense. Well, Aaron Sanchez is the epitome of that. In 22 and 2/3 innings this year, he has 12 strikeouts. That is not good in 2022. There are not a lot of effective pitchers in the major leagues in this day and age that strike out so few batters. Now, he throws strikes. We know that. We've talked about that. But you have to play pristine defense behind a guy like that, and he has to somehow induce ground balls and not balls in the air, and he wasn't able to do enough of that in this game. So I don't know what to say about this other than we've discussed he is a placeholder. At some point here, there will probably be somebody else who is more worthy of that spot, but I don't know at this point that we can really say there is someone. I don't think they're going to move Josh Rogers back into the rotation now that they've kind of established him as their only lefty. In the bullpen, Paolo Espino, we've discussed it. They just see him as the mop-up man. He is not going to suddenly be in the rotation. And until Strasburg and Ross, and they are still quite a ways away, are ready, I just don't see any other obvious answers here. And so I think we're probably going to stick with Aaron Sanchez for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if you cared about winning and losing this year, you would have Paolo Espino starting and not Aaron Sanchez. I mean, I don't know where the Sanchez thing is supposed to be taking you. The fact that they want to try to fix Sanchez in the meantime while they're waiting for these other guys, I mean, fine. I'm not against signing guys to minor league deals like the Nats signed Sanchez to, but so far, not so good. And, we need to say this. The Nats have, no track record in recent years of fixing guys. And that's what Aaron Sanchez is. He's a reclamation project. You're trying to fix him. Who have the Nats fixed from a pitching standpoint in recent years? That really doesn't happen. Now, they have fixed position players. Guys like Gerardo Parra and Asdrubal Cabrera and Josh Harrison were quote-unquote fixed. Alcides Escobar even to an extent with what he did last year. But pitching, no. The Nats do not have any kind of a track record in recent years for doing that. So, I think this is part of the frustration is you're watching guys who are not here for the purposes of being here when the team is good again. Like Aaron Sanchez is the placeholder. You're treading water with him until somebody else better, younger, ends up coming along. The Nats bullpen on Monday night, 4 relievers combined to give up 4 runs, 4 into third innings. Carl Edwards Jr. was good. He's actually looked pretty good for the Nats so far. 1 1/3 perfect innings, but Austin Voth and Victor Arano combined to allow 4 runs in the 7th inning. Erasmo Ramirez tossed the scoreless bottom of the 8th inning. Here's something else, too, from Monday night. I got a kick out of this. So Victor Robles on Monday night, 0 for 3 with a hit by pitch and a stolen base. Do you know that was his first stolen base of the season? I mentioned a few shows ago, Nelson Cruz finally got his first double of the season. Victor Robles, who in 2019 had 28 stolen bases, 1 steal now so far this year. And obviously, when you're not getting on base as often as you had been, you're not going to have as many steals. But still, that was a big part of the appeal of Victor Robles when he first came up, right? His speed. And he's still a fast guy. It's not like he's slow, but geez, 1 stolen base as we're nearly a quarter of the way into this season.
Well, it was actually his first stolen base attempt. He had not been thrown out either. So that tells you a lot of stuff. Number 1, yes, he's not getting on base nearly enough. But number 2, there's probably some hesitation on his part when he does get there because of his struggles there, especially last year. He was 8 of 14. Awful. And when they sent him down to AAA last September, they talked not just about his hitting, but about his base running mistakes, about being better on defense, and they really wanted him to clean all that stuff up. And I wonder if he's thinking in his mind, I can't afford to make any outs on the bases right now, so I'm just going to shut it down and not be aggressive at all on those few opportunities that he does have to try to steal bases. So it's not like this is his first one and he's been thrown out a bunch. No, he hadn't even tried it. And did you notice in that at bat, the pitch before he went, it was a legitimate pitch out. by the Marlins. I don't remember the last time I saw one of those. It's been a while. They legitimately threw a pitch out. He didn't go on it. He then took it on the next one. For Victor Robles to be an effective offensive player, yes, he needs to hit. He needs to lay off breaking balls out of the zone, all that stuff. But he also needs to take advantage of his speed. We've seen him do it a little bit by putting bunts down, by just kind of making contact and using his speed to get to first base. But that also applies once you're on base. He should be an above average base runner, and he really hasn't been probably since that 2019 season. It's one of the many things about him that have sort of mysteriously disappeared that make you wonder, who is the real Victor Robles? Could that guy we saw in 19 and the guy who was so highly touted, is he still in there somewhere, or was that a mirage? I don't know, but you'd like to think if you're Victor Robles at this point, you're getting the opportunity to play every day. Even though you're struggling, you're going to get to play. You would think that he'd try to make the most of it and say, hey, I'm going to show you I am a better base runner. I can do this. And I don't know why he hadn't tried one yet, but that stuck out to me, that it's not just that he's been poor at base running, but he's not even trying anymore.
Yeah, we talked earlier about like the happiness or lack thereof of Juan Soto. You do see that some with Victor Robles, like the joy, the sort of fervor has been zapped from him with all the struggles. That was the one thing, or one of the things about his success at San Francisco a few weeks ago. He not only did well, he looked like he was having fun again. And the more we get away from that weekend, it just feels like a really good weekend. It doesn't feel like a sign of anything, happening with him in terms of him returning to being a good batter again. But you would think, like, if you're feeling confident and feeling good, you're going to do things like attempt to steal bases. And, baseball's changing. Teams aren't stealing bases like they used to. We get all that. But, geez, to have one stolen base, to not even have attempted a stolen base until Monday night. Juan Soto is the Nats leader in stolen bases this season. He has 3. That's your leading base stealer for the Nats so far this year. Good for Juan, but it ain't supposed to work out that way with this team. That's not the way we would have drawn it up going into this season.
No, it isn't. And I agree. It's just the same thing I was thinking for those couple of days in San Francisco, maybe for a day or two after that in Colorado. Victor was bouncing around. He had the personality. He was feeling good about things, and it's kind of fallen back down again. And look, I get it. If he's not doing well, you probably feel like I can't show my full personality. But I would just say right now, he's not going anywhere. Like he's not about to be demoted, I don't think. They don't have the bodies to count for that. So they're going to give him his shot. This team is in rebuilding mode. If I'm him, I'm going for broke. I'm giving you the full Victor Robles, and I'm going to try to do this and salvage my career and show that I am still a part of this thing. And if it doesn't work out, so be it. But I would hate to see him miss out on this chance because he's being too tentative, because that's not who he is. He needs to be an aggressive player. That's in his DNA. And look, the defense has still been very good, aside from a couple of mistakes like we've talked about. I want to see the real Victor Robles there, not just at the plate, but on the bases, and we have not seen that.
Yeah, and one thing, too, Victor Robles is from the Dominican Republic, Juan Soto from the Dominican Republic. If you ever watch the World Baseball Classic, countries like the Dominican Republic, players in Latin America, they play with a flair and with an energy and with a charisma that we're not necessarily used to here, but that's kind of part of how the game is played down there. And so if you don't have that, it's kind of like that's a part of your attack plan that isn't being utilized by you. And I could see that kind of affecting someone. If you're not having fun and getting into the game the way that you are used to, I could see that detracting from your performance. And we've seen Robles' performance diminish here in recent years. So keep your head up, Victor. Keep your head up if you're a Nats fan. Monday night was not good. Better times will come, and we can just only keep hoping that the better times come sooner rather than later. You tell us what you think. You can hit us up on Twitter at Nats_chat. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com, including if you would like to sponsor the Nats Chat podcast. We continue to welcome your memories of the 2012 Nationals, as we this year are celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the Nationals' first National League East Championship as the Nats franchise. You can send in a voice memo of you telling a tale of a memory or of an experience from that 2012 season. Again, the email address is natschatpodcast@gmail.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast. And we're going to leave you right now with something a little different. A friend of the Nats Chat podcast, former Major League player, in fact, former Montreal Expos player, Geoff Blum. He has been the color commentator on Houston Astros telecasts for years. Obviously, he was in town this past weekend for the Nats series against the Astros. And we have this from Geoff, with his perspective on the Astros weekend in D.C., off the two teams having played in the World Series, off Dusty Baker, of course, having been Nats manager. So we thank Geoff for this. We hope you enjoy it, and we thank you for listening to the Nats Chat podcast.
Hey there, my name is Geoff Blum. I am the color commentator for the Houston Astros, and I also have a podcast on this Blue Wire podcast network. It is called Bleacher Blums. Me and a good friend talk a lot of baseball. We talk a lot about life and obviously Astros baseball. Our current episode actually talks about the dead ball issue right now in Major League Baseball with an astrophysicist named Dr. Meredith Wills. Feel free to tune into that. But a real quick recap of what happened over the weekend for the Houston Astros as they went into the nation's capital to play the Nationals. They came in hot, obviously, 10-game winning streak, and they continued that hot streak as they followed Framber Valdez, who went 7 2/3 innings and shut down the Nationals offense to 1 run on 8 hits. Did a great job, and obviously things got off to an electric start with Jose Altuve in that lineup. He's been swinging the bat well since coming off the injured list. He hit a home run on the first pitch off Josiah Gray, who is a guy I think is a really good pitcher. When he's right, he's going to be able to figure it out. The good fastball, pretty good slider, but everything was out over the plate, and I don't think he was ready for the Astros to ambush him like they did. And ambushing is probably a pretty good word for it because they put a 5 spot up in the first inning, but he pitched extremely well the rest of the way, actually going 6 innings and only giving up 1 more run in those 6 innings. It was a home run to Yordan Alvarez to center field. Yuli Gurriel got hot in this series, actually taking his average from 210 to 248 by the end of it, and has an 8 multi-hit games now in that series, and Altuve hit 2 home runs in this series. But at the second game of the series, Nationals offense lit it up. They blew up Christian Javier for 7 earned runs in 3 2/3 innings and stopped the Astros winning streak at 11. Interesting note about that game, the 13 runs the Nationals scored in that game is 1 more run than the Astros starting staff gave up in the previous 11-game winning streak. So credit to them for coming out and blasting and blowing the doors off the Astros in a 13-6 win. And then you've got Justin Verlander, good stopper to have in your rotation. He has been absolutely incredible to start the season after coming off the injured list with Tommy John surgery at the age of 39. The guy is an absolute freak, and he continues to go out there and pitch well. First time pitching in Nationals Park, actually, for the veteran who came into the league in 2005, and he went 5 shutout innings, and that was more than enough to give the Astros offense an opportunity to put up 8 runs and eventually win that game 8-0. Patrick Corbin, oddly enough, has pitched in 8 games this season, and the Nationals have not won a game yet. They are 0-8 in 8 starts for Patrick Corbin. I found that fascinating. And again, Yuli Gurriel found his way out of the ballpark for his 2nd home run of the season and hit both of those home runs in that series. Martin Maldonado, rough start offensively. He got himself a 2-run home run and also scored 2 runs. But the Astros offense continues to click, and when they get good pitching, usually ends up being a win for the Astros. Thank you for having me on. Again, my name is Geoff Blum. I played 14 years in the major leagues. Now I'm the color commentator for the Houston Astros. And I also, just a reminder, have a podcast on this network also called Bleacher Blums. Feel free to tune in. Thanks for having me on.
World Series history. Blum hits it into right, down the line. It is gone. Geoff Blum, the former Astro, goes deep. And here in the 14th inning, the White Sox take a 6-5 lead. Geoff Blum gets his first at bat of this series and only his 2nd of the postseason.